Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. My name is Adrian Harewood. I'm a professor in the School of Journalism, professor in the School of Journalism and Communication at Carleton University. And tonight I am delighted, I'm honored to be serving as the moderator for this debate here at Centretown United Church. Tonight, we are very fortunate to present to you an in-depth mayoral candidate debate of environmental and climate justice issues. It is the last in a series of 4 eco-debates that began in August 16th to be exact. Previous eco-debates, where all 14 mayoral candidates were invited, were held in Barrhaven, in Canada, and also Orleans. And the recordings of these debates are available to you from the organizers. Now, the selection of the 5 candidates present tonight is based on a survey sent to all signed-in attendees at the previous events, asking them who they most would like to hear more from and ranking their choices. So right now, we're going to proceed with our debate. And I would just ask those of you who are in the audience just to respect the fact that we are trying to have a very civil discussion this evening. And so just allow certainly all the candidates, and I would ask also if you just allow me, the moderator, also to proceed this evening. Thank you very much for your cooperation. So the way things are going to move this evening is we are going to start with introductions from our candidates. There will then be an opening statement from each of our candidates of 2 minutes. I will then ask about 5 questions. We will then have a bit of a break at around 8:10 for a couple of minutes, and then we will return to another set of questions, and those questions are coming from organizations in our city. So to get things started, I would just like to ask our first candidate, Brandon Bay, to introduce himself. And I would ask all of our candidates in their introduction, if you can try to answer the question, who are you and what qualifies you to be our mayor? So we're going to start with Brandon Bay. Brandon.
Thank you, Adrian. Happy to kick us off tonight. My name is Brandon Bay. I'm a software developer who manages the team at a senior-focused social enterprise and a passionate community volunteer. I have helped charities, festivals, community associations, and nonprofit boards, and now I'm running for mayor. The mayor's role, to me, is primarily one of leadership and vision. As the head of council, the mayor should set the direction and tone for Ottawa's future. They should be the strongest advocate for seeing that vision through, inspiring staff and council to work toward it, and communicating it to the world. These are skills that I have spent years honing. I have led teams in professional, governance, and volunteer capacities since childhood, through shared passion and mutual respect. My career in tech has given me an appreciation for using data to back up decisions. It has helped me learn to communicate complex ideas simply, and I would work hard as mayor to improve transparency at City Hall and justify my votes and decisions using facts and data. My green track record in the original question can't be viewed so much through a political lens. I haven't had a chance to vote in favor of sustainable initiatives, but I live a life that I hope will assure you that I would. In childhood, I began collecting and recycling people's litter left along the rural streets, and in the many years since, I have remained a naturalist, connected to the environment and spending a lot of time in it. I regularly take my canoe out on both Rideaus, the canal and the river, and I take transit as often as possible and love doing it. I'm an occasional cyclist, and I remain a dedicated recycler. I spoke at past eco debates about how people will always go to whatever lengths it takes to do the convenient thing, but that's often true of me, but I will also go to about any length to avoid putting an aluminum can in the wrong bin. At the same time, I won't hide that there's skills I need to improve. I attended a workshop on municipal finance this campaign and have read countless laws, bylaws, and staff reports since I first decided to run in November. Pour améliorer mon français, j'ai embauché un tuteur et je me suis inscrite à des cours en ligne. I'm in this race to make Ottawa the best it can be as often as it can be.
Okay. Thanks so much, Brandon. We've completed the introduction part of this evening, and now we're going to ask each of our candidates to deliver an opening statement. Brendan Bay.
I'd like to take a moment to thank the People's Efficient Plan Group for organizing, Adrian Harewood for moderating, and the Centretown United Church for hosting us, along with the many of you that came out to attend and even more online. But I'd also like to take a moment to thank the candidates who were not invited to join us tonight. Your passion and ideas are so valuable in this discourse, and your supporters have a voice thanks to you. I encourage everyone to watch their videos online when you have a chance. I do appreciate, though, how the smaller field lets me speak at a reasonable pace for once. I have been hearing from residents across the city about the unbearable cost of housing, the embarrassing and painful state of transit, and their fears about the future of employment and climate change. All of these things are related, and the solution to them is to invest in our communities. That starts with housing. Ottawa is expected to grow by 500,000 people, as Mr. Sutcliffe mentioned, which translates to about 200,000 new homes we need to build in that time. This growth is going to have an impact on our climate, the land that we lose to build them, the way these people move around, and the environments that we build for them. Council, then, should focus its energy on ensuring we build sustainable, complete communities. When we have these communities, staying close to home becomes viable and appealing, every part of the city becomes a destination, and small businesses thrive with a local pool of customers. Communities grow together, and neighbors support one another, making our homes friendlier, safer, and more inclusive. Remote workers can thrive in their own neighborhoods, and employees in the world's top knowledge economy jobs will want to live and work here. Transit can be streamlined between these hubs, opening up new options for residents without cars. Emissions go down as people drive less, and roads become less congested as people stay home. Complete communities progress our other goals, too. The swaths of service parking lots in our suburban communities can become farmers markets, parks, new shops, and new homes. Complete communities, and with them, climate justice, must be at the heart of everything we do in the coming years. They benefit everyone, and they will turn Ottawa into an affordable, sustainable, world-renowned capital city.
Thank you, Brandon Bay. We're now going to move to our first question, and the first question is going to go to Brandon Bay. He will have about 1.5 minutes to respond, and then the other candidates will respond and engage in a debate. In this section, each question should last approximately 8 minutes. So the question is this: although the City of Ottawa has a climate change master plan, the plan remains off budget and off track. How do you propose getting back on track in terms of dedicated senior management, budget commitment, and broader community engagement? Brandon Bay.
Corporate emissions, which is to say the city services and business, are about 5 years ahead of schedule right now, but the bars were set softly early on for them. They were under their 2025 targets the year before the plan was even approved, thanks to some great work from the Waste Department. You're right, though, that community emissions are lagging behind a little, and the plan remains in its infancy, so the city and I as well are hopeful that these programs are just taking some time to spin up. By city staff estimates, electrifying transportation and modernizing or replacing older buildings will account for 75% of all the emissions we need to reduce. These actions are and must remain the focus. The Canada Green Building Strategy is a forthcoming federal program that will help accelerate the latter significantly. The Federal Minister of Natural Resources has said that when the program launches next year, it will unleash a boom in green building construction and jobs. And it's just one of so many external sources of funding available right now. Ottawa needs to make sure that as the seat of the federal government, we are at the forefront of this benefit. To their credit, the city staff who lead the implementation of the Climate Change Master Plan are working hard to see it through. My priority would be to appoint a climate director in the other departments to make them more green with a specific focus on implementation details. The big picture vision and leadership is the job of the mayor and council, and adding more top-level bureaucrats will just give us too many cooks in the kitchen. Complete communities are a large part of the solution as well and should be the focus of our engagement. We won't meet our targets without significantly reducing vehicle emissions, and that will require building great destinations across the city, offering everything residents need to thrive. People in these communities know what they're missing and what they have that's worth holding on to. We have to listen to them.
Thank you, Brandon. Brandon, you've looked at all of these plans. You know the peril that we are in. Are these plans ambitious enough?
So I didn't hear the first.
No, I said that all the climate scientists are saying that we are in peril right now, right? And I'm asking Brandon Bay if the plans that you've assessed, your opponent's plans, are they ambitious enough?
All of them certainly are in their own ways. You know, there are good things in everyone's plans. Investing in alternative transportation infrastructure, which is core to McKinney's plan, is absolutely important. It gives people alternative options to get around the city, and it removes vehicles from the road, both helping the people that continue to drive by reducing congestion on the streets and lowering emissions in the process. You know, Bob has a great view towards the cost of this all, and that is something to be concerned about. But as I've mentioned, there's an incredible amount of money on the table, not to mention that the federal government this week, it was announced they have $20 billion that they're not sure what to do with. So, you know, having their ear in the capital city, maybe we can talk them into committing some more funds towards these important initiatives in this time of crisis as well. Mr. Sutcliffe's plan to plant 1 million trees is good, and I mean, I'd love to hear more about where exactly they're going to go, but we do need to improve the tree canopy in the city, and these are important things that we should be looking at. And I think Mr. Kadri in particular is really focused on the crisis of the moment and understands well how urgently we need to take action here.
And the other thing that I will not do is do a blanket removal of R1 zoning across the city so that people who live in neighborhoods like Old Ottawa South and Alta Vista and others will see their neighbor sell their house and the new owner putting up a 4-story building that has 6 units in it. We're going to achieve intensification, but we're going to do it in a smart way. There are other candidates proposing the complete removal of R1 across the city, and I don't think that's what the people in different neighborhoods in Ottawa want.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay. Brandon Bay, what will you do differently than former mayor, or not former mayor, he's still our mayor, but Mayor Jim Watson?
Much like my fellow candidates here have been speaking about, it's important to address the fact that in this last term of council, Mayor Watson appeared to take a very hard line with those who disagreed with him, and it's essential that we work with all wards and all councillors towards their goals, not just those who often agree with us, to ensure that we're improving the whole city over the next 4 years. I'd also draw on my background in software and see the city leverage technology to improve both service delivery, but also data-based decision-making and government transparency, and really just communicate better with the city. I'd also like to talk about the importance of holding developers accountable, which we saw less of than we should have in the last few years. In particular, ensuring that project plans are well consulted with the community and that they're not changed during construction in ways that eliminate mixed-use spaces, affordable housing, parks, or other important community features. We have to build faster, but we have to do it in a way that builds incredible communities for everyone. I'd also just like to briefly clarify what Mark was speaking to R1 zoning removal. Going from R1 to R2 just means you can build duplexes now. That's it. The buildings don't get any taller. It just means 2 families can live on 1 lot. And it is essential that we remove that restrictive, exclusionary zoning to build the important intensification we need in the city. It won't disrupt our communities at all.
Catherine McKenna, you were nodding throughout the time that Brandon Bay was speaking, which suggests that you're in violent agreement with everything he said. Is that the case?
I'm sure I used violent, but, but yes, let me tell you this. So Brendan's right. You know, removing R1 mostly means moving to R2. The province is going to do it. We need to get ahead of it. We need a Made in Ottawa solution so that we are making decisions for our neighborhoods. And we can do intensification in gentle ways, and it can lead to better, more walkable, more compact neighborhoods. We don't have to fearmonger. We don't have to tell you that you're going to have 6-story buildings or high rises in your neighborhood. As Brendan said, it will often mean a duplex, 2 families living where 1 does now.
So I'm against removing the R1 zoning because we need to preserve the identities of communities. I don't want anybody in Orleans or in Barrhaven or in Ottawa South or Kanata having high-rises in their backyards. We need to preserve the identities of communities. On the other hand, the solution is with intensification, but we can have intensification close to transit. We can have intensifications in urban places. We can have intensification, and I've seen very good ideas as I go on the campaign trail, on shopping malls. In general, where that's going to be good for both for business and for the people that are going to look at this.
I want to use an example of the kind of intensification we can achieve, and I talked about this when I announced my plan to build 100,000 homes over the next 10 years in Ottawa. Look at Bayview Station. It's the intersection of the two main transit lines in Ottawa, Line 1 and Line 2. There's 21 acres of land there that the city owns. If you stand at Bayview Station and you do a 360-degree turn, you don't see very much housing. There's a huge opportunity there to have smart intensification very close to public transit and to include a lot of affordable housing in a development there if we partner with Ottawa Community Housing, with other social organizations, and with the development industry.
Everyone got a chance to speak twice in this section except you, Brandon. So Brandon, you have the final word. My apologies. Speak twice.
I guess I'll just follow up on what Mark was speaking to then. 100,000 homes in 10 years just maintains the current pace. It's status quo. We've been building 10,000 homes a year for the last 2 years now. It's projected to continue on at this pace, and it just meets the minimum we need to meet growth, to eliminate the current deficit in affordable housing, and does absolutely nothing to solve the affordable housing crisis and the housing affordability crisis for those who live here today. And we need to set more ambitious targets, and we need to elect people who understand the zoning bylaw and are willing to eliminate things like R1 that are overly restrictive.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
move towards.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next section. To build more deeply affordable housing, to invest in public transportation, to enable the shift away from cars, and to address climate risks for critical infrastructure from extreme weather could require well over $500 million per year of new municipal capital and programming capital expenditures, assuming matched funding from the province and the feds. Where would you increase spending and where would you cut? Where would new immediate sources of municipal funding come from? Brandon Bay?
I actually think Noor is on to the exact number. 160,000 units is my target as well. I think his plan is a little ambitious in the rate we can get there, though. It takes time for city policies to make an impact on the way things are moving in the city, and I think to get there, we should look to double the rate of housing built by about 2029, which means it's more like 45,000 in the next 4 years. We're not going to be able to jump that far ahead that quickly. But 100,000 is not at all enough to do anything more than meet the immediate need of the city's growth over the next decade. But I'd also like to go back to the original question a little and say that Catherine McKinney is right. The budget is way too vague and difficult to parse, and so someone on the outside of council today looking in, trying to identify places to make cuts, it's very difficult. And I'd like to see more technology leveraged in collection of data on the way various services are performing, on where their money is spent, and expose that both to the public and to the council to make more informed decisions on our budgeting going forward. But my main budget priority is to grow programs that contribute to the city's quality of life, enhance community completeness, and advance multiple goals concurrently, all while generating more revenue to cover their costs. Some examples of that are an expansion of Invest Ottawa's startup programs into non-tech industries, increasing parking fees to pay for better road maintenance and public transit, retail spaces in transit stations and possibly libraries to pay rent to the city and grow some more money that way, a landlord licensing system. It's time to get creative at City Hall and dare to dream bigger.
Bob Shirelli, to build more deeply affordable housing, to invest in public transportation, where would you increase spending and where would you cut?
It's my position, first of all, when you look at what people are going through now in this economy, some of them having trouble making ends meet on mortgage payments, on buying food, and so forth, there's no damn way that I want to give an increase in taxes, and that's why we're on line to freeze taxes and to do that analysis for the first 100 days and what we can spend, where we can spend it. But we have the record, 6 consecutive years of freezing taxes.
Okay, Mark Sutcliffe, you wanted to intervene.
That's not realistic. It's not. Does anybody think it's realistic to freeze taxes with inflation rising as rapidly as it is? Does anyone think it's realistic to freeze taxes with the priorities that we have right now as a city, including addressing housing and homelessness? It's not realistic. It's a political gimmick, and it's not going to work.
Brandon Bay and then Noor Kadri. Brandon?
I agree with the idea that freezing taxes right now is irresponsible, both in this time of inflation While the city's expenses are going up, freezing taxes means significant cuts, but it also means we are taking no action in this time of crisis of housing affordability, of a transit system that often doesn't work at all, and of the climate crisis that we're here to talk about tonight. Yeah, I think, okay. I think we need to behave responsively with tax increases, but there will be increases.
Noor Kadri, does Brandon Bay have a point?
Well, he's got a point, but in the present tight fiscal environment, I would hesitate to spend more.
As mayor, what would you do to protect and improve access to green corridors, tree canopy, local wetlands, and shorelines? How would you advance equal access to local healthy food and protection of existing agricultural lands? Noor Kadri.
Many cities and communities, they have recognized that you cannot and should not source food from distant places. There are now available and economic technologies such as vertical farming that transform agriculture and food production into urban areas. And what is even more important is that these vertical farms produce healthy and clean food with the least amount of hands to handle the produce. So we need to balance these things out. The other important things that we need to be careful about is 82% of Ottawa is rural space. And that's got about 1,100 farms. And as part of our plan, we want to make sure that those farms are well equipped and repurposed and supported. For instance, we've got an initiative for smart farms. And these farms can have double the produce. They can have big support in terms of the cattle and the productions in there. And the trend that is going now is to have regional supply chains. We have experienced this through COVID, and we have seen the shelves going empty, and in some other situations, things have become expensive. We need to change that as we go by supporting our farmers in the rural space.
Thanks, Noor. Brandon Bay.
Noor's right. We have an incredible knowledge base here with all of the 11,000 farms he mentioned, and as one of Canada's strongest tech hubs. If we bring those experts together, we can easily be a world leader in ag tech. The Greenbelt has, among other things, given us a ton of south-facing, unobstructed horizon, which is ideal for greenhouses and vertical farming. Ottawa should expand its urban farming while we still have so much agricultural land and so many working farmers. That industry is seeing a decline in people going into it, and city growth is always going to be a mess of competing interests. I believe we should limit how much we expand the urban boundary, but this will surely not be the last time in Ottawa's history that we lose rural lands development. Local growing is good for the economy, for the environment, and for our health, and we need to figure out ways to keep doing it well into the future. Tech is a great option, but we've got others as well. The Kilbourne allotment garden that's in danger of being paved over is an incredible example of good community gardening that we should be replicating across the city. Shepherds of Good Hope, a shelter in the market, already receives a significant share of its summer produce from Kilbourne gardeners, and we can be doing that across the city with more fruit and nut trees, with more community gardening, with all of these crops benefiting shelters and food banks and other community groups. And as the city's density grows, we've got options to build green roofs and green balconies on new multi-unit housing that could help take backyard gardens into the sky. We've got tons of opportunity to expand our urban agriculture, and we should be taking advantage of that.
I think we are ready now with questions from our host organizations, and I'm just kind of looking for a little bit of direction. Are they here? You're here, okay. All right, please go ahead. You can pose the first question. And please introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, bonsoir. Moi, c'est Maurissa Dalia-Ellis. J'ai le plaisir de vous poser une question. Je travaille du Kawi. Aujourd'hui, la question que je vous pose, c'est posée par Temper P. And once again, I'll be posing the question in French. Alors, dans quelle mesure est-il important pour vous d'amener la politique municipale et la prise de décision dans un État plus collaboratif et compromettant? Et aussi, quel avantage cela présenterait-il pour une ville de travailler ou bien de ne pas travailler dans ce sens? Alors, dans le sens collaboratif et compromettant, par exemple, sur quelles priorités personnelles feriez-vous des compromis pour y parvenir? Merci. I can ask it in English, mais merci.
I think I agree heavily with what Noor was saying, that collaboration among the city is important to foster. And I mean, even with the other candidates here, all of the great ideas we're hearing and having this exchange, it's important to work together and to take the good and prioritize the things that the city needs. And I mean, all of you here have spoken to many of us about your priorities for the city, and we've been hearing on the campaign trail what everyone wants for the city, and those are the things we want to move forward. And for me personally, that's to make Ottawa an affordable home with complete communities, to see it become the greatest place in the country to start and run a business, and to be a world-renowned, world-class capital city.
Bob Shirley?
My name's Dave McNichol. Thanks for the welcome over there, sir. I'm happy to ask a question from the Council of Canadians, the Ottawa chapter. The question is from Jessica McRandall, and the question is about extreme weather. Given the increasing number of extreme weather events in Ottawa, from tornadoes to floods to derechos, putting lives and homes at risk, what actions do you believe can be taken at the municipal level to protect our community going forward?
Brandon Bay. Thank you.
One of the biggest and most immediate actions we can take is preserving and even expanding on the natural spaces we have that act as important stormwater drainage systems. That includes the Club Link golf course that's being proposed to be paved over. That includes other developments. Mark earlier mentioned Let's Intensify Bayview Station, which right now is all grass and green space, but there are places like train yards that are paved over monstrosities that we could build communities in instead. And I think it's important to protect the natural systems that we have, to really let the environment do a lot of this work for us, because it's the fact that we've been destroying it all that we're suffering so much today.
What is your plan for making public transport more affordable and more reliable, and encouraging more public transit? Are you also in agreement that Ottawa should impose a tax on vehicles coming into Centretown, the way that London has done in England, for reducing emissions and encouraging more public transit?
Brandon?
A blanket tax on vehicles that enter Centretown sounds difficult to enforce, and also like it would be disruptive to deliveries and to ride shares and carpools and taxis. But we already have an effective tax on vehicles coming downtown, and that's paid public parking. And that is at the heart of my transit plan, to increase those fees to discourage driving and use that money to help maintain roads better and pay for transit. With the numbers I've worked out, if we increase parking rates from an average of $3.12 an hour to about $9 an hour, and include some in-station retail and vending machines, we can cover about 75% of all transit fares and get rides down to about $1 a piece instead of the current $3.50. And maybe we can work a little further from there to head towards free transit, but that's something I'd have to explore with council.
Okay. That's going to be the end of this section. We're now going to have to move to closing statements because we're rapidly running out of time. And so I'd like to ask Brandon Bay.
Civic engagement is way down across the province and the country. News broke on Monday that fully a third of mayors or reeves in Ontario were acclaimed because no one registered to run against them. And this is happening more and more frequently with each election. But here in Ottawa, there are an impressive 14 people running for mayor this year. A handful of the candidates are local celebrities, which means they get a little more attention, but many of us are smart, passionate, thoughtful leaders who care very much about this city and want to see it be an incredible place for everyone. This many people with this much love for Ottawa says a whole lot about it. And in this digital age, it's very easy to learn about all the candidates. So please give everyone else a look after this debate. When you cast your ballot next month, I hope you vote for a strong vision for Ottawa. You vote for kind, safe, inclusive communities. You vote for a great remote work experience, and you vote for complete communities. Consider Brandon Bay at the ballot box, but whether you vote for me or not, please just make sure you vote. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you all. And I think all the candidates tonight have acquitted themselves very well. And I think that this slate, it's a testament to the quality that exists in our community. So thank you very much for representing the city so well this evening and comporting yourself with a lot of dignity and civility, and I think the entire audience here appreciated the vigorous discussion that we were able to have this evening. So thank you very much for that.